It seems like we're hearing a lot of the use of the term bust today when it comes to outbreaks that don't quite measure up to April 27th. Bust.
Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust.
Look at the STP. Look at the, this is going to be worse than April 27, 2011. Bust.
Okay, well, I wouldn't call this season a bust. And, I mean, it's not even over yet. Look, I know it's hard to compete with Enderlin and Greenfield and Rolling Fork, but we've still had some pretty impressive tornadoes this year, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. So here's to hoping nothing crazy happens while I'm recording this video within the next week. But let's see what the atmosphere's been up to this past season, and we'll go in chronological order. So who got the first tornado of the year in the United States? Well, it's exactly who you'd guess, Oklahoma. On January 8th, Oklahoma saw 5 tornadoes, one of which being a destructive EF2. Taking place in McLean and Cleveland counties near Purcell, it touched down at 7:24 a.m. and lasted about 10 minutes before wearing itself out, having a max width of 150 yards and traveling 9 miles. There were no deaths associated with this tornado, thankfully, just one injury, as the tornado had crossed I-35 and rolled a semi-truck in the process. Multiple homes in the town were damaged, with one house having its roof blown off and another attic blown to pieces across the resident's yard. The tornado also snapped power poles, with one dangling in mid-air, tangled in power cables. A small local workshop was left in ruins, and a large metal awning from a garage was ripped off and thrown over several houses. Quite the start to the day, but also quite the start for the year. February 19th, just before 7 p.m., a tornado touched down in the wooded area west of Monroe County Airport in Bloomington, Indiana. The tornado rapidly intensified as it moved into a small neighborhood nearby the airport. This area experienced extensive tree damage, along with affecting multiple homes. It was here that damage indicated wind speeds of roughly 120 miles per hour. It then traveled eastwards, causing damage to an airplane hangar at the airport. The tornado then continued east of the airport, damaging numerous homes before striking a newly constructed neighborhood, where an additional high-end EF1 to low-end EF2 damage was observed. Additional damage was observed to the northeast of an apartment complex. It hit the Monroe County Humane Association animal shelter, but thankfully all the animals inside were okay, and many have been temporarily relocated as repairs have proceeded. The tornado dissipated at around 7:06 p.m. near the business district of I-69 after producing damage to a bank overhang and causing roofing damage to several warehouse structures. Homes in the affected neighborhoods had various degrees of damage, with materials littering the roadways. There were torn roofs, broken fences, and ripped siding. Vehicles were scratched or struck by debris, along with pea to ping-pong-size hail. One man's basketball goal in his driveway was snapped in two. Air conditioning units were knocked off their foundations. Sheds, lawn furniture, trash cans, mailboxes, and trampolines were scattered or missing. On 10 Sleep Road, resident Lauren Buchanan called out, "Does anybody know who owns the fridge in my yard?" Bobcat Bend was a surreal landscape, with shredded insulation blanketing the pavement, like snow, as the residents put it. While thankfully there was no substantial injuries or deaths reported, it had a max width of 440 yards and traveled just under 4 miles in total. March 5th through 7th, our first deadly outbreak of the year, and it certainly meant business. First, there was the tornado that hit Fairview, Oklahoma. This EF2 spawned just after 8 p.m. southeast of Orion in Major County, tracking 7 miles before dissipating about 18 minutes later. Peak wind speeds were estimated between 115 to 120 miles per hour, with the most intense damage occurring near US Highway 60, where a vehicle carrying a mother and daughter was struck. The car was unfortunately mangled, and the mother and daughter were the only deaths as a result of this tornado. It also knocked over a semi-truck, but the driver walked away without serious injuries. Power poles and transmission lines were snapped, and a nearby house had their roof ripped off. Since the tornado hit a more rural area, damages weren't as severe. However, the loss of life goes to show how deadly nighttime tornadoes can be, especially for those driving. Next up, we have the 2 tornadoes that hit 3 rivers in Union City, which I actually covered in depth in an entirely different video that you should totally check out, but I'll give you a quick rundown for those who don't feel like changing the video just yet. 3 Rivers, Michigan saw an EF2 tear through the town at 3:47 p.m. It was grounded for about 20 minutes, had max wind speeds of 130 miles per hour, and tracked just over 12 miles. It hit multiple businesses, in particular a Menards and a nearby U-Haul facility. It caused 10 injuries and fortunately 0 deaths. However, the same can't be said about the tornado that spawned from the same supercell just 30 minutes later. Union City saw an EF3 touchdown northwest of Branch County into the west edge of Union Lake. Many residents lived around Union Lake, leading to multiple video angles of this tornado as it rapidly became a multiple vortex wedge. Causing the most widespread and intense damage along Prairie Rose Lane, the tornado leveled homes and caused immense ground scouring. Tragically, 3 individuals lost their lives here when the manufactured homes were lofted and tossed. Flying debris was made up of houses, cars, and even shards of ice being ripped up from the frozen lake. While the tornado had peak winds of 160 miles per hour, construction quality and older building codes of all the homes in this area contributed to their failure and precluded the survey team from being able to rate any higher than an EF3. The tornado continued off to the northeast into Union City, producing EF1 to EF2 damage along the way before dissipating at the Branch and Calhoun County lines. Terrifying and tragic, a tornado that has left a deep scar on the small communities near Union Lake. But if you haven't seen the video, you should check out the video. I go way more in depth in the video. It's a good video. It's a really good video. You should check it out. The last majorly destructive tornado of this outbreak was an EF3 to hit Beggs, Oklahoma at 7:17 p.m. in I'm gonna pronounce this wrong. I'm just letting you know now. In Okmulgee County. It lasted roughly 12 minutes, traveled 6.8 miles, and had a max width of 950 yards. This was just one of 12 tornadoes to strike Oklahoma that day, with Beggs being the most destructive. It destroyed 4 homes, shredded trees, flipped cars, and impacted the Beggs Middle School. A classroom had parts of its roof collapse, and school buses had their windows shattered, along with various debris impacting the school's gym and playing fields. Students can now finally see what the tornado drills are actually for. But while everyone that sheltered at that middle school was okay, unfortunately 2 lives were lost in one of the houses that was destroyed as a result of the tornado. The couple perished under the rubble, with their son surviving, hospitalized with serious injuries, but is believed he made it out okay, one of the 2 reported injuries from this event. Following the storm, dozens of volunteers reached out to help clean up efforts in the community, and students got a week off of school while repairs took place. Overall, it impacted roughly 32 different structures and had max wind speeds of 135 to 140 miles per hour. A tornado that begs the question, are you prepared for the next severe weather threat? I'm sorry. But things only calmed down for a couple of days, as another tornadic outbreak struck March 10th through the 12th, with the most notable being Kankakee, Illinois' EF3. During the morning of the outbreak, a warm front had moved into northern Illinois where it stalled due to a lake breeze from Lake Michigan. This generated a large, long-lived, and destructive tornado, first touching down in Kankakee County, just east of South 1000 West Road, and moving northeastward, damaging a solar farm and a warehouse. It then intensified as it entered the far southern portions of Kankakee, causing damage to numerous trees, businesses, homes, and various other structures. An Aldi location had its windows shattered, and a large metal building had roof and wall panels peeled away. The tornado then crossed US 45 and US 52 before entering a residential area, with a home along Seedorf School Road being completely destroyed. The tornado weakened, and after crossing another intersection, tracked over empty farmland and inflicted damage to the roof of yet another home before crossing I-57. The tornado then began to regain strength, inflicting damage to several homes along the western shore of the Kankakee River, before crossing the body of water, tracking into northern portions of Aroma Park. Numerous homes along the eastern shore of Kankakee River suffered minor damages, along with uprooted trees and destroyed buildings. A 65-year-old man in the area was killed after a large tree fell onto his home, which was along Oakwood Drive. The now large tornado then intensified even further as it crossed Waldron Road, where more power poles were snapped, and a nearby home and extended garage suffered extensive damage, with the garage having the entire roof torn away and the house having around half of its roof ripped off. The tornado then turned southeastwards and tracked further into the suburb, damaging numerous homes, including several that suffered significant damage. The tornado then crossed KBSR's Kankakee Line before exiting Aroma Park, tracking over a large expanse of empty land as it turned eastwards and approached the Kankakee River for a second time. The tornado rapidly gained strength again and crossed South Sandbar Road along the western side of the river, where 2 homes were completely destroyed and several others suffered severe damage. One 2-story home had most of its upper floor removed, the lower floors suffered the collapse of at least one exterior wall, and a nearby garage was obliterated, with debris blown across the road. Another home that was on a foundation made of cinder blocks was entirely demolished. Numerous hardwood trees in the area were significantly damaged, with some being completely uprooted or stubbed. The tornado then crossed Kankakee River once more before snapping trees as it tracked over a golf course. The tornado then narrowed and tracked erratically east-northeastwards through a less populated area, as it crossed Illinois 1 and passed north of Witcher and Hopkins Park, inflicting scattered damage to homes, trees, and power lines, while the parent supercell spawned 2 more EFU satellite tornadoes to the north of this tornado as well. The tornado tracked over North 700 West Road into Newton County, Indiana, and began to approach Lake Village from the west. The tornado then re-intensified again, where it destroyed several farm outbuildings and significantly damaged a mobile home. The tornado then crossed North 600 West Road, where 3 mobile homes were swept clean off their foundations. 2 elderly individuals fell victim to the tornado in one of these homes. A large van was thrown into an area of displaced debris. 2 nearby outbuildings were destroyed, trees were heavily damaged, with some being debarked, and a mobile home had its entire roof torn away. Kentland Bank had its drive-through canopy destroyed and numerous shingles removed, with several large trees suffering limb loss nearby. A Family Dollar had its entire roof removed, with the front of the building partially collapsing. The tornado then continued erratically in an east-northeastward motion, damaging trees, outbuildings, and power poles as it crossed SR 55, south of Thayer, and approaching Roselawn. Turning sharper to the northeast and narrowly missing Roselawn, the tornado then crossed I-65 and entered Jasper County, causing its last bits of damage as it struck Forest City. The tornado traveled over 35 miles and reached a maximum width of 1,550 yards, or 0.8 miles wide. In Kankakee County, nearly 500 buildings sustained damage, with 30 homes being completely destroyed. While the placement of this tornado is incredibly unfortunate, it could have been much, much worse if it had touched down just a few miles north, making it a direct hit to the city center of Kankakee. Multiple hailstones from this event were measured to be over 6 inches in diameter, with the largest documented being around 6.6 inches. 4 satellite tornadoes were produced around this twister as it tracked through the area. Just one supercell was responsible for the 12 confirmed tornadoes to hit Livingston and Kankakee counties in Illinois and Newton, Jasper, and Stark counties in northwestern Indiana. An extensive amount of lofted debris is likely the cause for a lot of the destruction from the tornado, as max wind speeds topped out at about 160 miles per hour. With 11 serious injuries and the 3 aforementioned fatalities, hundreds of residents are left without homes but are just happy to have their lives. While this may have been the most impactful tornado of this outbreak, a total of 106 tornadoes were confirmed during the March 10th through 12th time frame. An absolutely wild couple of days in the US this year. It's gonna be tough to beat. Just kidding, April had 3 different tornado outbreaks this year. Leave it to April to knock those numbers up. The first outbreak landed April 13th through the 16th, with our first major twister being an EF2 that hit Ottawa, Kansas at 7:23 p.m. on April 13th. The tornado quickly developed just south of Ottawa City and carved eastwards, affecting many homes and businesses. It had peak wind speeds of 125 miles per hour, traveled 7.3 miles, and had a max width of only 100 yards. But it was very much rain-wrapped, making it difficult to spot. While grounded for 25 minutes, it brought up to baseball-sized hail and caused substantial tree damage. The tornado hit True Comp Pipe Manufacturing Plant, tearing down walls, with the city deeming the building unsafe to enter. It hit a local motel, the Knight's Inn, tearing off the roof and knocking down multiple walls. No injuries were reported at the motel, but multiple rooms were left exposed and trashed from the event. A family-owned mechanic shop was also impacted. Its windows were blown out and a back wall was ripped through. With various power poles snapped, many were left without power for some time, but the community quickly came together to rebuild. The tornado injured at least 3 people and caused thousands in damages, but thankfully no deaths were reported. However, not long after the Ottawa tornado dissipated, that same supercell ended up producing a second EF2 tornado, this time near Hillsdale, Kansas. While not fast, with max wind speeds of 115 miles per hour, it was just as destructive, with the tornado injuring 1 person and impacting about 100 structures, 50 of which being significantly damaged. It was only grounded for about 5 minutes, but traveled just over 3 miles, with a max width of 250 yards. Although incredibly short, it was incredibly impactful, destroying a local storage facility. Of the 300 storage units on site, only about 50 are salvageable. Several RVs were crumbled and one tossed into a pond. Boats from the storage center were thrown and debris was stuck in trees and power lines. With a community of less than 150 people, Hillsdale quickly began to rebuild and repair the next morning following the storm, with many residents volunteering to help clean up and provide resources for one another. I just want them to do the same for me, just like anything else. Just the golden rule, just do it, and for your neighbors, says Britt Bauer, a volunteer helping clean up after the storm. It's okay to ask for a helping hand. We all need help once in a while, he said. On April 14th, tornado activity resumed as another round of tornadoes took place across Iowa and Wisconsin. A low-end EF3 tornado tracked just north of Union Center, Wisconsin. No, I'm not talking about Union City. This is Union Center, Wisconsin. What's up with the word union and summoning destructive tornadoes? Anyways, at 6:35 p.m., a tornado spawned north of Union Center, Wisconsin. It traveled 9.2 miles over a period of 20 minutes and had a max width of 80 yards. Although small, it was strong, with estimated max wind speeds of 140 miles per hour, inflicting significant damage to outbuildings and trees. One home in particular took a direct hit from the tornado, leaving very little of its original structure, with roof damages to their nearby barn as well. It defoliated and snapped numerous trees, took down power lines, and damaged multiple other homes and crop fields. Multiple storms bore down on Wisconsin outside of this tornado, bringing large hail, flooding, and strong winds across the state. Thankfully, no injuries or deaths were reported as a result of this tornado, just lots of property damage and a large rainbow, a little peace after the chaotic storm. Overall, 50 tornadoes touched down between April 13th through the 16th, but the next group of storms were about to make an appearance not much long after. April 17th and 18th, 86 confirmed tornadoes touched down across the U.S. 2 of said tornadoes were ranked EF3s, with one hitting Cream, Wisconsin. Yes, Wisconsin is still going through it. The tornado formed a few miles southwest of Cream at around 4:26 p.m. and traveled 10 miles towards Montana, where it lifted north at around 4:46 p.m. It had a max width of 300 yards and max wind speeds of 140 miles per hour, but thankfully it hit a lesser populated portion of the state, with only a few homes receiving damage. The tornado damaged one family's home, removing several exterior walls and the roof, leaving the structure in shambles. Trees in the area were also downed or snapped on the path, with farm outbuildings also being destroyed. Fortunately, the small community has come together to help those affected by this tornado's wrath, and everybody walked away from this storm unharmed, with no injuries or deaths reported. But Wisconsin wasn't done yet with nature's fury. as another EF3 spawned in Ringgold at 4:46 p.m., lasting 18 minutes and traveling 13.5 miles. The tornado moved northeast, crossing Highway 29 and downing hundreds of trees. It then moved through neighborhoods, along and near River Road from Shady Lane to north of Clubhouse Road. In this area, dozens of homes suffered significant roof damage, with failures of attached garages. At least 3 homes in this area had complete removal of their roofs, with failure of all exterior walls and several interior walls. The tornado continued northeast, closely following Eau Claire River and dissipating 5 miles southwest of Hogarty. It had a max width of 600 yards and estimated max wind speeds of 145 miles per hour. One man who was tending to his cows when this tornado hit called his family from outside to tell them to get to shelter while he laid in his field waiting for the tornado to pass. Up to 75 houses in Ringgold were damaged, but surprisingly, 0 injuries or fatalities were reported. But okay, we're finally done with Wisconsin. I'm sorry you had to go through all of that. 2026 has not been your year so far. Now we have the tornado outbreak that struck April 23rd through the 28th. Unfolding in the central part of the U.S. Multiple tornado watches and warnings were issued, and a tornado emergency was issued for southern Enid. Now, if you haven't heard about Enid, welcome. At about 8:13 p.m. on April 23rd, an EF4 touched down south of Enid, near West Longhorn Trail, and traveled northeastwards, passing Vance Air Force Base and Highway 81. Dissipating after about half an hour before reaching Woodring Airport, the tornado knocked down utility poles and left power lines wrapped with huge chunks of debris. Trees were left stripped of bark and limbs, homes were torn apart, and interiors exposed, with debris scattered across properties. A boat was also seen overturned, and multiple power lines were knocked down. At least 40 homes experienced extensive damage from the storm, with around 15 reported injuries. A family-owned woodworking shop was destroyed, with the owner stating, "Luckily, it is just damage, and we can replace that. You can't replace people." Remarkably, no fatalities occurred as a result of the tornado. The mayor of Enid spoke about the event as well, stating, "We do not take our citizens lightly. We care about them, we're resilient, and I assure you, we will rebuild that neighborhood. Those folks will have homes." After Enid, an EF3 struck portions of Mineral Wells, Texas, on April 28th at 5 p.m., causing significant damage and injuring 5 people. The tornado traveled 4.6 miles with max wind speeds of 145 miles per hour, producing minor tree and fence damage before moving southeast across Ellis White Road into Country Club Estates. The tornado uprooted trees, collapsed carports, and damaged homes, including one home where the entire roof and truss structure were removed and displaced about 200 feet. The most serious damage was found through Fort Wolters Historical Park and Holiday Hills Estates. Multiple homes in Holiday Hills Estates sustained major roof and window damage, while several World War II-era warehouse structures in the Fort Wolters historical area fully collapsed, with some partially collapsing. The tornado damaged multiple historic helicopters on display. The Historical Museum's Memorial Garden was also torn apart, leaving what remains scattered among debris. Overall, 132 homes and businesses were affected by the twister. I think we are most grateful for no loss of life in this event yesterday, Mayor Johnson stated. When you see the destruction that's here, you can tell that that's really amazing. Only grounded for a little over 10 minutes, the rain-wrapped tornado was difficult to pinpoint, making it a day or two before a damage path was established through the use of drone footage. While it may take some time for the area to recover, locals are determined to rebuild. 99 confirmed tornadoes touched down between April 23rd and the 28th. But we're not done yet. May 6th through the 7th, yet another small tornado outbreak occurred, with about 10 confirmed tornadoes. A very large, extremely long-tracked EF3 tornado occurred in southwestern Mississippi. Forming south of Knoxville, the tornado reached a maximum width of 1.16 miles wide, toppling an electrical tower, causing significant tree damage, and injuring 23 people. But once again, no fatalities. While it was initially believed to be 2 different tornadoes, tornadoes. The National Weather Service confirmed the track of this tornado was 70 miles long and was on the ground for 2 hours. The first instance of EF3 damage was an area of near complete devastation to a mixed forest, including some instances of debarking east of Garden City community. A second area of EF3 damage was identified in western Lincoln County near Jackson Liberty Drive, where 2 truss transmission towers were damaged, including one bent to the ground and the other collapsed. A third corridor of EF3 damage occurred along US Highway 51, between Brookhaven and Bogue Cheeto. In this area, tree damage was extensive, with some debarking. A home was heavily damaged, with many exterior walls collapsing, and a mobile home park was completely devastated. Vehicles rode along a center vortex path. Heavy tree damage occurred along the entire path, and wind speeds were estimated to be at around 137 miles per hour. At least 4 other smaller tornadoes were confirmed to have hit Mississippi that night as well, leaving the state in disarray. Approximately 500 homes were damaged statewide, primarily in Lamar and Lincoln counties, and baseball-sized hail and flooding followed the destructive storm. The morning after, residents rummaged through what was left, salvaging what they could. Lincoln County Sheriff's Department Captain Andrew Montgomery stated, "This county is great for coming together. We've been known to give our shirts off our backs for each other. It'll be a long road to recovery following this beast of a storm, but everyone walked away with their lives still intact." Finally, we have our last tornado outbreak to date, that being between May 17th and 18th, with 33 confirmed tornadoes touching down. The largest of these was an EF3 to hit St. Libory, Nebraska, on May 17th at 5:04 p.m. The tornado tracked from northeast of St. Libory into a rural area surrounding Palmer, inflicting severe structural damage. Atmospheric conditions allowed the tornado to remain highly visible and distinct from its parent rain shaft. Numerous storm chasers captured footage of the life cycle, documenting a rapid transition from a narrow cone into a wide, violent stovepipe structure as it cross-cut open fields and rural homesteads. It leveled at least 2 homes with ground-level damage documentation, showing at least one home's foundation swept entirely clean of structural debris. One family's home experienced significant damage despite being newly constructed and only lived in for about 4 months. A 4-wheel utility vehicle at a damaged farmstead was lofted and thrown a significant distance by the vortex. A cattle barn was hit, with feeders blowing nearly 2 miles away. The rancher said he's lost 23 calves and 19 cows. One home suffered a total structural collapse while the occupants were still inside. The residents had taken shelter in the basement and became trapped by the heavy debris of the collapsed upper floors. Howard County first responders successfully extracted the residents, with none requiring emergency medical treatment. The National Weather Service recorded hailstones up to 3.5 inches in diameter, with combinations of violent winds and large hail causing widespread secondary damage, shattering windows, fracturing roofs, and denting vehicles across Merrick County. The tornado also caused localized structural damage to outbuildings and agricultural piping systems before lifting. It had a max width of 350 yards, traveled a path of 6 miles in roughly 10 minutes, and had an estimated max wind speeds of 160 miles per hour. While it hit a more rural portion of the state, the tornado still left its marks on the lives of residents in the area. Though once again, no fatalities or severe injuries were reported. Overall, 33 tornadoes touched down during those 2 days. And now we're at today, or at least at the time of me recording this. And no, I do not think this season has been a bust so far. If anything, we've been incredibly fortunate. I say that because we've only had 12 fatalities this year, which, I mean, obviously, 12 is already 12 too many, but we've had 644 tornadoes overall in 2026, with only 12 fatalities. So I consider that a win. I consider us extremely lucky. And while Enid has been our highest rated tornado this season so far, I don't really have high hopes that we'll have an EF5 this year. And I say that because, you know, obviously we had Enderlin last year and we were all spoiled by that. And now we've gone into this year expecting another crazy EF5. I don't think it'll happen. I mean, I'm just saying statistically here, I don't think it's going to happen, but prove me wrong. Let the atmosphere prove me wrong. I don't have high hopes for it. I don't think it's going to happen. That's my weatherman take. Weatherman Gene take. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. Like, comment, subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Stay safe.